Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke and got really tired really quick of reading this genealogy and really had no idea why is that important for me to know it. And as the grace of God has been given to me, it makes all the importance. So starting with the Gospel of St. Matthew, the genealogy of Jesus Christ. It traces the genealogy from Abraham to David, David to the Babylonian exile, and the Babylonian exile to the birth of Christ. And each one of those three, this Trinitarian type genealogy layout, it gives us 3 sets of 14. That is significant because the name David, there are no vowels in the Hebrew language, so your A and your I are removed. So David in Hebrew would be DVD. D has a numerical value of 4, V has a numerical value of 6, and D again has a numerical of 4, giving us 14. That alone tells us that through the birth of Jesus, he is the 14th generation of David, all the way to Abraham. Now, this genealogy, its characteristic is that of a king. So this is a book written for the Jews because they were looking for the king, the son of David, the son of Solomon, this kingship Messiah. However, they missed it. Moving on to the genealogy of birth of Jesus Christ from the Gospel of St. Luke. Now, if you notice, I'm taking the Gospels out of order just a little bit, but I'm doing that for a reason. In Luke's Gospel, one more point on Matthew. It traces the lineage of Jesus to his earthly father, Joseph. Okay? When we come now to the Gospel of St. Luke, it is the genealogy of his mother, Mary. Okay? So Luke would have obviously used Mary as a resource for this genealogy. So it traces Jesus' birth from him to his mother, to a man by the name of Matthias, who we're going to read about in Maccabees, on the cleansing of the temple, to the prophet Nathan, who is the son of David, all the way to the first man, Adam. So the point is that we want to come from this genealogy. It goes from Adam to David to Nathan, a prophet. Solomon is not even mentioned in Luke's genealogy. First time I recognized that. That's a mystery. To Matthias to Mary. This is a genealogy, that of a prophet, because the son Nathan was a prophet. So in Matthew we have its kingship. Now in Luke we have the prophet. Now we come to Mark's gospel. Where's the genealogy in Mark's gospel? There is none, because it takes on the form of a slave and a servant. Slave and servants don't have a genealogy. It's kind of like that pedigree of the mutt dog. They don't have pedigrees. This is the slave and servant. No pedigree. No genealogy. And now we move forward to the Gospel of St. John. It traces the genealogy of Jesus Christ all the way back to his divine nature as high priest. So if you take the 4, we sit back and we look at them. First we have a king. We have a slave, a servant. We have a prophet. And we have God himself, the high priest. That's why the 4 Gospels are the Gospels that have been given to us from heaven. And that's why there are not 5, and there's not 6, and there's not 3. There's 4 for that reason. Part 2. Let's move on now. We're going to go back and forth in this morning's conversation. We're going to go from the Gospel of John to 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Back to the Gospel of St. John. Back to Maccabees. I hope I don't lose the confusion. There's going to be a point. There is a lot of mysteries here. Again, everything is going to point towards the cross of Jesus and his passion. Therefore, it's going to give us the opportunity to get down to the mysteries of what Hanukkah means and how it relates to the cleansing of the temple. So I'm going to go to the Gospel of St. John, chapter 2. And if we know in chapter 2, the first event that happens is the wedding feast of Cana. This is where Jesus he reveals his divine nature. Well, it just so happens is right after the wedding at Cana, he goes immediately to the cleansing of the temple. Why? There's a mystery there, and now we're going to explain it. So I'm going to start in verse 13, chapter 2 of the Gospel of St. John. And it was the Pasch, or the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And he found in the temple them that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of money sitting there. And when he had made, as it were, a scourge of little cords, he drove them all out of the temple. The sheep also, and the oxen, and the money of the changers he poured out. And the tables he overthrew. And his disciples remembered that it was written, "The zeal of the house has eaten me up." And the key word here is zeal. Hold on to that word. The Jews therefore answered and said to him, "What sign dost thou show us, seeing why you have done these things?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "It took 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking of the temple of his body. When he therefore had risen again from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed in the scripture and the word that Jesus had just said. Now when he was at Jerusalem at the Passover, upon the festival day, many believed in his name, seeing his signs which he did. If we notice there, we're talking about the cleansing of the temple. Jesus was relating the cleansing of the temple to the cross. I'm going to raise it up on the last day. And another key point was the zeal. That's fulfilling prophecy, the Psalm 69, verse 9. And it says that he scourged with a cord. So that word scourge needs to be planted into our minds. The only other time that this word scourging of the temple is used, not in the other 3 Gospels, only in St. John's Gospel. And he refers it up into the chapter 19. And so I'm going to read the words of chapter 19. So we can make the connection between chapter 2 and the cleansing of the temple in chapter 19. Because it says, "And therefore Pilate took Jesus and scourged him." Going to the Latin Vulgate, the word scourging is used exactly in the same format as it was in chapter 2. And it actually, the Latin word is flagellum. So we know when Jesus was scourged, they call it the pillar of flagellation. Okay? Because he was scourged. He was cleansed. So when Jesus went and cleansed the temple, back in chapter 2 of John, it was pointing us to John 19 in his passion, because now the true temple is being cleansed. Okay? The true temple being scourged. So now that's going to allow us to go back into the Old Testament. We're going to go into Maccabees. And now we're going to talk about this Hanukkah, this cleansing of the temple, this scourging, and this miracle of light in the Festival of Lights. So I'm going to turn to 1 Maccabees.